No, you got it all wrong. Got it all wrong. Kamala Harris didn't pick Pete Buttigieg to be her running mate, not because he was gay, but no, you got it all wrong. But because she didn't think he had a snowball's chance at HE double hockey sticks of helping her win the election. She was just a bad politician. That's what it was. Kamala Harris is out on a book tour, and she said, I could have chosen Pete Buttigieg, but I didn't choose him. And it's not because he was gay. It's because he sucked. Oh, that's horrible. I probably shouldn't say that. It's because he wasn't going to help me win the election. That's at least what she's telling Rachel Maddow. She told Rachel Maddow, who is also a gay man, that she didn't pick Pete Buttigieg not because he was a gay man, but because he couldn't win.
I guess I'd ask you to just elaborate on that a little bit. It's hard to hear.
Yeah.
With you running as, you're the first woman elected vice president. You're a black woman and a South Asian woman elected to that high office, very nearly elected president. To say that he couldn't be on the ticket effectively because he was gay is hard to hear.
No. That's not what I said. That he couldn't be on the ticket because he is gay. My point, as I write in the book, is that I was clear that in 107 days, in one of the most hotly contested elections for president of the United States, against someone like Donald Trump, who knows no floor, to be a black woman running for president of the United States and as a vice presidential running mate, a gay man, with the stakes being so high, it made me very sad, but I also realized it would be a real risk. No matter how, I've been an advocate and an ally of the LGBT community my entire life. So it wasn't about any prejudice on my part, but
that
we had such a short period of time. And the stakes were so high. I think Pete is a phenomenal public servant. And I think America is and would be ready for that. But when I had to make that decision with 2 weeks to go, and maybe I was being too cautious, I'll let our friends, we should all talk about that. Maybe I was. But that's the decision I made, and I, as with everything else in the book, I'm being very candid about that.
Yeah.
With a great deal of sadness about also the fact that it might have been a risk.
So Kamala Harris, in her new book, 107 Days, says this was a hotly contested race, which I would debate, by the way. I don't know that it was as hotly contested as she may have thought. And she said, look, it's not that I don't love the gay people. I love the gay people. I've been a proponent of the LGBTQ plus AA cross the FYI community forever. It's not that Pete Buttigieg being gay affected my decision, but who wouldn't be ready for Pete Buttigieg to be the first gay running mate? The rest of America who hates gay, the homophobes who just aren't ready. So I had to make a choice. Pick somebody who I know is a great running mate, a great politician, somebody who would fight for America and is also uber gay, or choose somebody who's not gay and try to win the race because it's so hotly contested. So Kamala Harris made the decision. This is where it gets good. So instead of choosing gay Pete Buttigieg, the mayor of South Bend, she chooses Tim Walz. Okay. So I want you to fully, it took me a minute, fully understand this. Pete Buttigieg, what's his name? Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg. Too gay to be vice president. Tim Walz, the appropriate amount of gay to be Tim Walz. Pete Buttigieg, too gay. Tim Walz, not too gay. Too gay or not too gay? That is the question. And Kamala Harris went with not too gay for her. It didn't work anyway because, you know, we all know that. Spoiler alert, she lost. What's up? This is Mark K. This is, how are we supposed to take anything this woman says seriously? She doesn't pick Pete Buttigieg because he's too gay to be vice president, so she goes with Tim Walz. I think... you know what? Anyway, listen, thanks so much for joining us today. But wait, we got a whole, I don't even know if we're going to get to, I mean, there's so much stuff going on. This may be a 15-hour podcast today. This may be the longest show. I hope you don't have plans for later. I sure don't. That's a lie. I do have plans for later, and I'll get to those here in just a minute. But this could be one of the longest podcasts of our lives. There's so much going on. Kamala Harris is out on a book tour, and she's lying. She's throwing every single Democrat she can right under the bus, right under the big abortion bus. Remember, she drove the abortion bus around the country? She brought it right here to Jacksonville. I went to go see it, and the police escorted me off of Jacksonville University's campus because I was trying to get a tour of the abortion bus. Kamala Harris, she's now throwing all of the Democrats, Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, Tim Walz, all of them right under the abortion bus, and, you know, backing up a couple times to drive over them, all in the name of selling some books. Also, Jimmy Kimmel is coming back to television tonight, and also, nah, he's not. We'll get you that story in just a minute. Plus, Trump went to the UN and roasted them. Trump walked into the UN and basically spent about an hour and a half telling them how much they suck. Also, speaking of things that Donald Trump thinks sucks, Tylenol for pregnant women, and there's going to be a government shutdown. And I'm fine with that. We got make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube, set the notifications, set the, the Rumble, whatever it is you're doing on the Rumble, hit the little button. I think it's a thumb up or it's a joint, whatever it is, you know the thing. And of course, if you're listening to the podcast, you want to make sure you're telling iTunes and Spotify that you want this stuff every single day. Also, fun fact, Friday, we will not have a live show. I will be traveling for Parents Weekend because I'm a parent of a child who is in college. So I have to go and do the Parents Weekend. There's going to be like tours and other stuff like that. Anyway, so that's what I'm going to be doing on Friday. So there will be no Cha-Ching Chat Friday this week. So feel free just to throw cash at me today and tomorrow and Thursday. So if you were saving up for a Cha-Ching Chat Friday, just do it to just throw that $20 on the chat, right? Just super chat away. Just rumble rant to your heart's content all week long because there will be no Cha-Ching Chat Friday. And I don't want you to miss your opportunity to financially show your support for this show because I know it makes you feel good. And I want to help you. It makes me feel good too. And it allows us to do things like, the show. That's the thing. That's the thing. The Cha-Ching Chats, people are like, oh, you're out to Cha-Ching Chats. You're just looking for money. Well, you're just looking for a show. So it's kind of like, it's a give or take scenario here. I'm more than happy to do this show every single day, as long as you're more than happy to help me out with that respect. Listen, this Kamala Harris thing, I got to be honest with you, I'm really entertained by this. Do you remember during Kamala Harris's campaign when she would give the same speech over and over and over again, and then we would catch her doing it, and then we would clip it and say, look, this is the same exact speech. Well, Kamala Harris is back, and she hasn't learned a gosh darn thing because she was on 2 TV shows that I was able to catch, and she said basically the same words almost verbatim on both. The first was MSNBC, where she was speaking with Rachel Madcow. Listen to what she said about how unprecedented this race was.
The sitting vice president enters the race against a former president of the United States who's been running for 10 years with 107 days to go. And it ended up being the closest presidential election in the 21st century. And
by the way, we'll break down that lie in just a minute. So that was her on Rachel Maddow. Okay. This is her on The View just moments ago.
This is unprecedented. Think about this.
Yeah.
That there's a race for president of the United States. The current sitting president is running for re-election. 3.5 months from the election, he decides not to run. The sitting vice president then takes the mantle, running against a former president of the United States who had been running for 10 years with 107 days until the election. And by the way, another piece of what is unprecedented and a bit historical about that race, it is the closest presidential race in the 21st century in terms of the outcome.
So there you go. So Kamala's at it again. She's got, and here, of course, I did the same thing we've always done for you. I've taken both of them and run them at the same time. So you can hear her using the exact same speech, the exact same words, the exact same lies, back to back at two different appearances.
The sitting vice president, running against a former president of the United States who had been running for 10 years with 107 days.
Yeah. So there you go. I mean, it's the same Kamala, same old show, totally, well, hopefully the same ending. But that's Kamala Harris. And she hasn't let up. She has no agenda. She has not. The only thing Kamala Harris is trying to do is sell books. And the only way she can sell a book is to try to remind everybody that Donald Trump is bad and that she had a chance to stop him. And so now I guess she thinks there's people out there that care. She told The View, by the way, this was kind of funny because she came out on The View. Everyone was cheering and yelling because what they do is they just load that audience up with, I mean, people, I think they pay them, but they're people that drink the Kool-Aid. If you're in the audience of The View, then you definitely, it's just, a collection of Karens. It's a Karen convention. So they get all the Karens in the audience and they sit them all down and they say, when Kamala Harris comes out here, I want you guys all to scream and yell and cheer. And so they scream and they yell and they cheer. And then Joy Behar turns to Kamala and says, this probably happens to you everywhere you go, right? Listen to what Kamala said.
Well, a lot of people are coming up to me crying, actually.
Crying. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet. Pete Buttigieg, Tim Walz, Doug Emhoff, I'm sure Pete Buttigieg is coming to you crying, go, why did you pick me? Is it because I'm too gay? And I'm thinking probably Tim Walz is walking up going, I should have been gayer. Maybe then we would have won. And it's just, it's just probably a mess. But she said people are coming up to me crying. They're crying every single day. They come up to me and they just start bawling. And, if I ran up to Kamala Harris or if I saw her in public, I might cry too. But then she talked a little bit about election night. They talked about election night, and this really shows, I'm going to be honest with you, this shows exactly how out of touch with reality the Democrats are. All of them. The Democrats on The View, the Democrats in the White House, the Democrat Party, Kamala Harris, all of them. They are so out of touch. They are so far. They have no idea what's going on in the real world. Here's the question that Sarah Haynes asked Vice President Kamala Harris.
There seemed to be so much momentum after President Biden stepped aside. There was a renewed sense of hope for Democrats, honestly, for everyone. It felt like there was this great option. Money was pouring into the tune of $1 billion. There were huge crowds at your events. And then election night came, and it was 2016 all over again.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, by the way. However, there's asterisks that go along with that. There's an asterisk to you had momentum. Joe Biden dips out of the race. Kamala Harris comes in. She totally hijacks the nomination. Nobody actually ever voted for her in a primary. They just decided this is going to be our nominee now without asking the actual general voting public. And Kamala Harris, there's great momentum. The momentum wasn't for Kamala Harris. It was because Joe Biden was gone. The excitement wasn't because, oh, yay, we get Kamala. It was, yay, we're not going to have Joe Biden. And the money pouring in, the money was pouring in, but the money didn't seem to matter to the tune of $1 billion on a losing campaign. What Sarah Haynes is doing is just highlighting how bad a candidate Kamala Harris is. Kamala Harris had $1 billion to spend on a presidential campaign, and she spent it all. Had $1 billion to spend, and what did she do? She lost in great fashion. I mean, it was incredible. You want to talk about a loser? That's the biggest loser ever. To have $1 billion come in campaign funding in that short a period of time, to have the crowds. By the way, the crowds weren't there for Kamala Harris. The crowds were there for Beyonce. let's not kid ourselves. The crowds weren't there for Kamala. The crowds were there to watch Megan Thee Stallion twerk and Beyonce sing, although she didn't. They were there to watch Oprah Winfrey yell, joy. They were even there probably for Barack Obama before he went back and started to scold those young black men who then turned on him and voted for President Donald Trump. The crowds weren't there. There were no crowds for Kamala. There was no enthusiasm for Kamala. All Kamala had was a bunch of money, and she couldn't even win. She couldn't even buy the election. That's how bad she was. But then she said, yeah, you know what? Election day was tough. Election day. Here's what happened on election. She grieved. She was sad. It didn't go the way it didn't go the way they thought it would.
We had never talked about election night.
It felt traumatic.
It was that traumatic. We had never talked about election night. So I'm writing it and I'm thinking about it. And, you know, and there were a number of people who I could kind of like, what was your, you know, like the different perspectives of a moment. And that's when Doug told me that he had been out campaigning with my brother-in-law in Pennsylvania, and we met back up in D.C. And I remember him being a little out of sorts, but there was so much happening. But on his way back from a rally where there was an incredible amount of enthusiasm, people on the ground like, we got it, we're going to do this. And then they talked with a mutual friend of ours who was over at Fox News in the war room, who had been hearing about data that suggested things were not looking great in Pennsylvania. And the way I write about it, I mean, my poor husband, so he didn't want to put that on me. He went upstairs and he basically went in the shower and prayed that it was not going to be a bad night.
Okay. I don't know that he went in the shower and prayed. I'm just saying. It's Doug Emhoff, the second gentleman of the United States of America. No, first of all, typical husband, scared of his wife. He knows, right? He's out in Pennsylvania. He's campaigning with her brother or whatever, and their brother-in-law, and they get a call from their friend at Fox News, which I want to know who the rat is at Fox News. And someone at Fox News is like, hey, Pennsylvania is not going to go your way. She's not going to win Pennsylvania. And if she doesn't win Pennsylvania, she ain't winning the White House. And Doug Emhoff knows this. And election night, what does he do? He doesn't tell her. She goes, Doug, you didn't want to put that on me. He knew you were going to lose. You're sitting there on election night. You're watching the TV. You've got your hopes up. Doug Emhoff, your husband, is sitting on information that you're going to lose Pennsylvania. And without Pennsylvania, it's impossible for you to win the election. So he knows already hours beforehand, you're not going to win this election. So what does he do? He goes and takes a shower. He's like, you know what? This is a waste of my time. I'm not staying up till 2. I'm going to go take a shower. Fun fact, if your husband on election night, when everybody else in the world is watching the returns come in, if your husband on election night, while everybody else is glued to their TVs wondering what's going to happen in the Rust Belt, what's going to happen in Pennsylvania, if your husband is like, excuse me, I'm going to go take a shower and go to bed, he knows the outcome already. He knows what's going to happen, and he's just too chicken to tell you. Which, I mean, that totally goes exactly with what I expected from Doug. I mean, I probably wouldn't tell my wife either, but I wouldn't go shower. I'd be like, come on, honey, it's going to be okay. And then when, like, she did, you know, if she did lose Pennsylvania, if my wife ran for president and I knew she was going to lose Pennsylvania, and I'd sit there and I'd wait. And then when she lost Pennsylvania, I'd like throw something and go, you B-words, what's wrong with you, Pennsylvania? Take your keystone and shove it in my keister. And I'd throw something at the TV and I'd be like, that's it. I'm never eating a Philly cheesesteak again. You conservative, Trump-loving B-words. That's what I did. And my wife would be like, calm down, it's okay. I'm like, no, I won't calm down. You were supposed to win Pennsylvania. Even though I knew deep in my soul of souls, she was never going to win. Doug Emhoff's like, I'm just going to take a shower. This day's over. He probably did his whole routine, right? He's like, look, there's no point. One of us has got to be well rested for tomorrow. You sit here and you watch Donald Trump become president. I'm going to go take a shower. I'm going to do my nightly routine. I'm going to shower. I'm going to exfoliate. I'm going to do my sugar scrub. I'm going to, trim my cuticles. I'm going to call Pete Buttigieg, chit chat with him a little bit. Apologize once again. Because I'll tell him he was my choice. You were my choice, Pete. You were my choice. You were the perfect amount of gay for me. Anyway, that's what Doug Emhoff did. But then the girl on The View, who's the Latina woman? What's her name? I forget. She's on CNN all the time. She used to yell at Scott Jennings and make weird. What's her name? Anyway, it doesn't matter. She's there and she's talking about how she was at a rally right before. And listen to what she said, about the rally.
Yeah, well, I was at that Philadelphia rally the night before, and I was sitting behind your husband, Doug, and Maya and your family. And I remember hugging them and them telling me, we got this. I felt so good going into Election Day, and then I read in the book that you did too. I went into Election Day thinking you were going to win.
Yeah.
So did you.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. I went into Election Day thinking you were going to win, says, I think her name is Gina. Is it Gina? Is it Tina? Something. Anyway, no, she's Latina. That's what it is. Anyway, Anna. Her name's Anna. Thank you. Her name's Anna Navarro. And so Anna Navarro goes, I went into Election Day thinking you were going to win. And Kamala goes, yeah. And she goes, you did too. She's like, yeah, look, and I'm all about having optimism. I get it. If you're the candidate, this is the thing. If you're the candidate, you need that optimistic. You need to think you're going to win, but come on. You also need some realistic friends around you. And this is how much they live in a vacuum. They had no idea what was going on outside of the campaign. They had no idea what was going on outside of the View studios. They brought in their convention of Karens every single day who would cheer and yell and scream and applaud whatever idiotic things they said. And they thought that represented the entire world, the entire country. And then Donald Trump rolls in with a win. I mean, a decisive victory, no matter what Kamala Harris says. And that's it. And they all now they just can't believe it. Now they're like, whoa, that is just crazy. That is just crazy. And that's when she started grasping at straws and trying to find anything that she could to make this loss, to make her huge loss seem not as huge as it actually is. And that's when she came up with this beauty.
This is unprecedented. Think about this.
Yeah.
That there's a race for president of the United States. The current sitting president is running for re-election. 3.5 months from the election, he decides not to run. The sitting vice president then takes the mantle, running against a former president of the United States who had been running for 10 years with 107 days until the election. And by the way, another piece of what is unprecedented and a bit historical about that race, it is the closest presidential race in the 21st century in terms of the outcome.
Okay, now, I mean, I guess the folks on The View just don't care about the truth or don't know what the truth. Probably they don't know the truth. Probably they don't actually follow politics as much as, normal Americans do. But if you look at the race, okay, and again, I'm no mathematician, but I'm just gonna do some quick calculations here. In 2024, let me zoom in on this just so that we're all clear on exactly what happened. In 2024, President Donald Trump got 312 electoral votes. Kamala Harris got 226, which means Donald Trump won by 86 electoral votes. Okay. Now that seems like a pretty big victory. In 2016, okay, Donald Trump won by, where is it? I got this right here. Won by 304 votes, and Hillary Clinton got 227 votes, which is 77. So wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hillary Clinton only lost by 77 votes. Kamala Harris, she lost by 86 votes, and she has the audacity to come out here and say this was the closest election ever in the 20th. No, it wasn't. No, that's one of the biggest lies. Let's keep going, shall we? Let's keep going. Let's go to a Democrat election. Let's go to 2012. 2012. Well, I think 2012 was a shellacking. 2012's okay. 2012's a bad example, but yeah, Romney got shellacked by Barack Obama. Let's go to 2008. That was John McCain, I believe. He also got destroyed by Barack. Let's skip the Obama years for a minute. Oh, 2004. Here we go. In 2004, George W. got 286 electoral votes. John Kerry got 251. That's 35 votes. 35 electoral votes. And that was in the 20th century, right? Or 21st century, 2004. That was actually, if you don't count 2000, let's go back to 2000 and take a look. Just for kicks and giggles, let's go back to 2000 because I seem to remember that was a pretty close election, right? 271 for Bush, minus 266 for Gore. That was 5 electoral votes. Remember the hanging chads and the dimpled chads and the butterfly ballots and the this and the that? Where does this woman, does she not think we don't know this stuff? Like, we don't have Google? We don't have Chat GPT? The 2000 election, the first election of the 21st century, was the closest probably one in history, maybe since the election of Thomas Jefferson versus Aaron Burr. But she has the audacity to say that this was one of the closest elections. And not only that, she said it twice.
The sitting vice president enters the race against a former president of the United States who's been running for 10 years with 107 days to go. And it ended up being the closest presidential election in the 21st century.
That's a lie. That's a lie. It's not even. 35 votes separated Mitt Romney and, 35 votes separated George W. Bush and John Kerry. 77 votes separated Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. 5 votes separated Al Gore and George W. Bush. And she's telling me she got hammered. The only people really who lost by more of a margin than Kamala Harris did were whoever ran against Barack Obama. And they weren't very good candidates. They weren't very good candidates. Kamala Harris, I guess, is saying she wasn't a very good candidate either. Listen to what else she said, too. This is where I think she doesn't realize what she's saying. Kamala Harris is basically not only throwing, I mean, she's throwing everybody under the bus. She's throwing Joe Biden under the bus. She's throwing gay Pete Buttigieg under the bus. She's throwing them all under the bus. Listen, then she throws herself under the bus.
I think that a lot of it is about racism and sexism. And those are the reasons that you really lost, not because of the time thing. What do you say to that? Do you think this country will ever elect a woman president? In my lifetime, probably not.
I beg to differ. I believe that we will. And listen, you know this, and I've been honored to be on this show many times and talk with this esteemed group. Every office I've held, I've been the first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Usually the first woman, and then often the first woman and the first person of color. Mm-hmm. The only time actually I was the second, when I was the second black woman ever elected to the United States Senate in its hundreds of years history. Mm-hmm. So I'm not naive. Race and gender do play a factor in some people's minds about how they vote. But my history tells me, because I have been the first in all of those, that people ultimately want to know that this is the best person to do the job. And that's their focus, and that's how I've always run. I've never run as a woman or as a person of color.
But you and Hillary
I have
Clinton,
run because I believe I'm the best to do the job.
Okay, listen to what she said there one more time. She said, yes, some people are sexist. Yes, some people are racist. Some people out there don't want to vote for me because I'm a woman. Some people out there don't want to vote for me because I'm black or Indian or whatever. She became a black person. That's why they don't want to vote. But she goes, but I believe most Americans vote for who they think is best suited for the job.
Race.
Here it is.
So I'm not naive. Race and gender do play a factor in some people's minds about how they vote. But my history tells me, because I have been the first in all of those, that people ultimately want to know that this is the best person to do the job. And that's their focus. And that's
okay. So her history tells her, she's sitting there and she's saying, look, yeah, racism aside, sexism aside, bigotry, misogyny, put it all aside. Ultimately, history has shown me that people vote for ultimately the person that they believe is best suited for the job. And she lost. She's basically saying, what I believe is that Americans, people, historically will vote for the person they believe is best suited for the job. And in this particular case, that person was Donald J. Trump. She's admitting that nobody liked her. She's admitting people historically will vote for the person that they feel will do the job better. Okay, great. We all voted for Trump. Congratulations. You're right. That's the one thing I agree with her on. That is the one thing I agree with her on. I may have to read this book, actually. I'm not going to, but I may have to. Listen, there's so much other stuff going on today that I don't know if we should. Do we go to Jimmy Kimmel next, or do we jump to Donald Trump? Jimmy Kimmel's short. I'm not talking about his actual height. I believe he is a short man, but Jimmy Kimmel. So yesterday, right after the show, well, here's what happened. We did our show, and then we did our Patriot Club meeting. And if you're not a member of the Patriot Club, by the way, we had so much fun yesterday. For example, let me give you a little example of what happens during our Patriot Club meetings. If you're not a member of the Patriot Club, what happens first of all is we go to a private room. Like a little VIP room. There's no champagne or strippers or anything like that, but it's a nice private room. And we fire up it's like a full hour almost, or another 45 minutes or 30 minutes, whatever we have time for. And here's what happens. We share some stories that maybe I didn't get to. You get to look in my personal life. There's direct Q&A. So if you've ever had a direct question that you wanted to ask me, if you ever were looking for an answer to something specific, boom, you can ask me a question and get a direct answer right there during our Patriot Club meetings in the after party. So that's always a big plus. Yesterday, I went through publicity photos because I did a big photo shoot. And what I like to do is I don't just pick these photos on my own. I rolled through with all of our Patriot Club members and I said, hey, look at all these great photos. Which ones do you guys like? And there was some brutal honesty. I got to admit, there was some brutal honesty. There was some somebody actually said to me in the Patriot Club meeting yesterday, don't ever take another photo without a hat on. I was like, whoa. Okay. Thank you, though. But, membership has its privileges. People can talk to me. Fun fact, people talk to me like that outside the Patriot Club, too. But doesn't matter. But if you'd like to become a member, it's only $10 a month. And if you buy an entire year up front, you get 2 months free. It's a savings of $20. That's really incredible. So check that out. Anyway, so right after we did our Patriot Club meeting, the news about Jimmy Kimmel came out. And Jimmy Kimmel was returning to television. ABC News decided, Disney decided they were going to return Jimmy Kimmel to TV. But there's a caveat, because you may remember, the reason why Jimmy Kimmel was taken off of TV in the first place was because he's a big D-bag. And also the syndicators, Sinclair Media and Nexstar Media, decided it was not in their customers' best interest for them to air the Jimmy Kimmel Show any longer. After what Jimmy Kimmel said about Charlie Kirk and how he spread misinformation, falsehoods, and lies about the assassin, the person who allegedly killed Charlie Kirk in cold blood in front of a crowd of 3,000 people, the person who's now in custody, who's facing the death penalty, he lied about that person's origin and motive and political ideology and tried to pin the murder of Charlie Kirk, one of the greatest American patriots, one of the greatest Christians, one of the greatest evangelists, and one of the greatest people we've had on this earth in a very long time, on Donald Trump's supporters. Tried to do that, did it on live television, didn't get away with it because Sinclair Media and Nexstar Media pulled the plug and said, we're not airing his shows until he apologizes. And we're going to have to sit down with ABC and Disney and see if there's a future moving forward. Well, Disney at that point said, look, if our two largest syndicators, who are responsible for like over half of the stations that air the Jimmy Kimmel Show, aren't going to air the Jimmy Kimmel Show, we're just going to pull it off the air till further notice. Well, that further notice was yesterday because Kimmel's show is set to return tonight. Jimmy Kimmel Live will return to ABC on Tuesday night, the network said Monday, ending a nearly week-long standoff over the late-night talk show, even as major station owners said they would still keep the show off their airwaves for viewers in thousands of homes. Sinclair and Nexstar Media Group, which together own about 1 in 5 ABC affiliates nationwide, both said they would continue preempting Kimmel's show in a controversy that's gone beyond late night talk shows into questions of free speech and the First Amendment. Fun fact, ain't nobody questioning the free speech and the First Amendment. This is not a free speech or First Amendment issue because, as I stated in a previous broadcast, you do not have a constitutional right to a late night talk show. A late night talk show is a privilege, not a right. Jimmy Kimmel Live will return to ABC on Tuesday night, the network said Monday. Here we go. Sinclair next door. Okay. Sinclair, one of the country's biggest owners of local TV stations, said its ABC affiliates will preempt the show beginning Tuesday night. Sinclair said it will air news programming in the time slot instead. Discussions with ABC are ongoing as we evaluate the show's potential return, a Sinclair spokesperson told CNN. And Nexstar said its ABC affiliates will also continue to preempt Kimmel's show. We made a decision last week to preempt Jimmy Kimmel Live, following what ABC referred to as Mr. Kimmel's ill-timed and insensitive comments at a critical time in our national discourse. That was ABC's commentary, not Nextstar's. The company said in a statement on Tuesday morning, we stand by that decision pending assurance that all parties are committed to fostering an environment of respectful, constructive dialogue in the markets we serve. Brendan Carr, President Trump's close ally atop the top Federal Communications Commission, cheered the preemption in a social media post Tuesday. Carr wrote that local TV stations, for the first time in years, stood up to a national programmer and chose to exercise their lawful right to preempt programming. Both Nexstar and Sinclair condemned Kimmel last week and contributed to ABC Disney's decision to pull the show from the airwaves. Kimmel said the MAGA movement was trying to score political points by trying to prove that the 22-year-old suspect accused of killing Kirk is not one of its own. Then they go into the things, yada, yada, yada. So if you live in a market that has a Nexstar ABC station, then you won't be forced to watch Jimmy Kimmel tonight. I live in a Nexstar market. In Jacksonville, I believe our ABC affiliate is owned by Nexstar, so they'll preempt that with some other kind of programming. Fun fact, it's a lot of markets. It's Seattle, Washington. It's Washington, D.C. It's Jacksonville, Florida. It's Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's a lot of big markets. So Jimmy Kimmel is not going to be on all the places where the advertisers think that he's going to be on. And if you're not on in all the places where the advertisers think you're going to be on, then your advertising revenue is going to go down. And if your advertising revenue goes down, odds are people aren't going to want you on their privately owned television network anymore. So Jimmy Kimmel's crying free speech, Jimmy Kimmel's crying First Amendment, but really what Sinclair Broadcasting and what Nexstar are doing is they are exercising their First Amendment rights. They are exercising their freedom of speech not to air Jimmy Kimmel's show. And that's always the side that gets lost in the shuffle. You have the right. You have the right to go on and say whatever you want, and the owner of that TV station has the right to say, that's the last time you're going to be on my TV station. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord splits you. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Jimmy Kimmel tonight. And by interesting, I mean, not at all interesting. I hear Gavin Newsom, by the way, is going to be his first guest. Is that right? Hang on, let me just double check that. I hear that he's having, here's the thing, adding insult to injury. Now what he's going to do is he's going to have Gavin Newsom on his show. Let's see, Gavin Newsom, Kimmel. I just want to double check that because I don't want to be like Jimmy Kimmel and say things that are wrong. Jimmy Kimmel having Gavin Newsom as his first guest after returning is in itself one of the funniest things he could have possibly done. Is it? Breaking news, Jimmy Kimmel announces that, here it is. Jimmy Kimmel announces that Gavin Newsom will be tomorrow night's return to the air guest. So this is really telling. This is an unapologetic move. Jimmy Kimmel makes fun of Charlie Kirk, links Charlie Kirk's killer wrongly, his assassin wrongly, to MAGA and to Donald Trump supporters, gets kicked off of the air for a week, and in his comeback show, he brings on Governor Gavin Newsom. So I imagine there's going to be some more Trump hating on the air. It's a slap in the face. It's Jimmy Kimmel basically saying, I haven't learned a lesson, and I'm not going to stand out. I'm going to continue to push my political propaganda with all of my political propagandist friends, like the governor of California, one of the biggest political propagandists there is. All right, so Donald Trump went to the UN today, and man, he tore into them. I love it. I love Donald Trump in the second term. Second term Donald Trump is way better than first term Donald Trump, and first term Donald Trump was amazing. First term Donald Trump was, we had so many great things come out of first. You remember first term Donald Trump? We got You Are Fake News. We got Jim Acosta, You Are Fake News. We got Jim Acosta in the White House acting a fool. We had Donald Trump, his first state visit to see the king. We had Donald Trump doing all kinds of amazing things in his first administration. We had, it was so much fun. Well, now we're back, and Trump 2.0 is even better because he walks into the UN and he just lambasts them for everything, from their horrible foreign policy, from the way that they fund and entice illegal immigration all over the world, not just here in the United States of America, but also in Europe. And also he pokes fun at them for their broken escalators and teleprompters. Apparently what happened was the teleprompter broke right when Donald Trump went out to speak.
I don't mind making this speech without a teleprompter because the teleprompter is not working. I feel very happy to be up here with you nevertheless, and that way you speak more from the heart. I can only say that whoever's operating this teleprompter is in big trouble.
You know who I bet I know who was operating it. I bet it was President Emmanuel Macron from France, because Emmanuel Macron from France, get this, he got stopped by Donald Trump's, what do you call it? Not the entourage, what do you call it? The procession. Donald Trump's procession of vehicles. They shut down the entire, city blocks in New York City. That's what you do when the president comes to town. You got to shut it down because the motorcade's coming through. So Donald Trump's motorcade shuts down the street where Emmanuel Macron is trying to cross. Emmanuel Macron gets on the phone. Macron on the phone, which is I imagine that's how Donald Trump's phone rings. He goes, "Oh, it's the Macron phone," and Emmanuel Macron, President Macron, calls Donald Trump and says, "Can you please tell them to let me cross?" And Donald Trump's like, "Nah, buddy, you should walk."
I'm sorry, I'm the president. I'm really sorry. It's just that everything's frozen right now. There's a motorcade coming right now. I'm sorry.
If you don't see it, let me cross.
I don't see it.
How are you?
How are you, Donald?
Guess what?
What?
I'm waiting in the street because everything is frozen for you.
Oh no, yeah. Yeah. So what happens is the cop says, "Listen, I'm really sorry. There's a motorcade coming through. I can't let you cross." And he goes, "I don't see the motorcade. Let me cross. I'm Emmanuel Macron. I'm the president of France for now. Maybe not much longer, but for right now, I am the president of France. I must get to the UN. I must get to the UN so I can say free Palestine. I must get to the UN so I can say Palestinian state must exist. Please let me cross." And the cop's like, "Nah, man, President Donald Trump's coming through." So he picks up the phone and he calls Donald Trump. He goes, "Hello, bonjour, Monsieur President. How are you? Guess what? They're not letting me cross the street because you're coming." And then the next thing you see is Emmanuel Macron walking several blocks to the UN with his security detail. He had to walk in the middle, and it's bright, it's dark. And people are stopping him. They're like, "Oh, can I get that picture? Can I get a photograph with you?" Oh, my Emmanuel. That's such a Donald Trump maneuver. Anyway, so then I guess President Macron, he's so mad. He goes in there and he pulls the plug on Donald Trump's teleprompter. And the teleprompter doesn't work. And Donald Trump says somebody's in big trouble. But that's the least of their worries, because then he said, "Look, your teleprompters stink, but you know what? You got even bigger problems. You got bigger problems. It's not just the teleprompter, it's the escalator."
I ended 7 wars, dealt with the leaders of each and every one of these countries, and never even received a phone call from the United Nations offering to help in finalizing the deal. All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. If the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen, but she's in great shape. We're both in good shape. We both stood. And then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the 2 things I got from the United Nations: a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter.
That is.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. That's Donald Trump, and he's right there at the dais in the United Nations, in front of the world, in front of the president of the Secretary General. They're all right there. And he goes, "I stopped 7 wars, and I got nothing from you bastards. I stopped 7 wars. I didn't even get a phone call. I didn't even get a Starbucks gift card saying, Hey, thanks for stopping all these wars. I didn't get any help drafting final resolutions. I didn't get any help with you guys coming to the table, offering any kind of assistance. I did it all by myself. Wars that raged for decades, 31 years, 38 years. Wars they said could never be won, could never be ended by anybody. Countries who've been feuding since they were founded are now friends. They're now peaceful coexisting nations. I did that. Everybody's saying I should get the Nobel Peace Prize. There are 92 different people in this room alone who have said Donald Trump should get the Nobel Peace Prize. And all I get from the UN is a broken escalator and a busted teleprompter. Thank you very much for that. But that's not all. The UN is also bad at, uniting the nations, which is kind of our, you guys are called the United Nations, but you guys really, you guys suck at that too.
China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil. But inexcusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy and Russian energy products, which, as you know, I found out about 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't happy. Think of it. They're funding the war against themselves. Who the hell ever heard of that one? In the event that Russia is not ready to make a deal to end the war, then the United States is fully prepared to impose a very strong round of powerful tariffs, which would stop the bloodshed, I believe, very quickly. But for those tariffs to be effective, European nations, all of you are gathered here right now, would have to join us in adopting the exact same measures. I mean, you're much closer to this. We have an ocean in between. You're right there. And Europe has to step it up. They can't be doing what they're doing. They're buying oil and gas from Russia while they're fighting Russia. It's embarrassing to them, and it was very embarrassing to them when I found out about it, I can tell you that. They have to immediately cease all energy purchases from Russia. Otherwise, we're all wasting a lot of time. So I'm ready to discuss this. We're going to discuss it today with the European nations, all gathered here. I'm sure they're thrilled to hear me speak about it, but that's the way it is. I like to speak my mind and speak the truth.
And the truth is that you are warring with He put it perfectly. He goes, you guys are at war with yourselves. You give money to Russia for your energy. You give money to Russia for crude oil and for natural gas. You're giving all this money to Russia, and they're taking that money and they're building drones and they're flying those drones into Poland and Estonia, and they're killing Ukrainians. And the Ukrainians, you know what they do? They go into your countries and they become refugees and they take up your valuable resources. And what do you do to end the war? You give more money to Russia. And they buy more drones and more munitions, and they get more troops, and they send more, and they kill more Ukrainians. What are you doing? And Donald Trump says, this is not brain science, brain surgery. Wait, rocket science? Yeah, it's not rocket science / brain surgery. It is easy peasy lemon squeezy. China and India have to stop buying Russian oil. And since we can't get them to stop buying Russian oil, we can tariff them up the wazoo. And while he's saying all this, by the way, the Russian delegation, if you're listening to the podcast, the Russian delegation is sitting there with their iPhones and they're recording Donald Trump. There's like 3 guys from Russia. They're all sitting there in their seats. They're recording President Donald Trump's every word, which is weird because it's like televised everywhere. It's live streamed on every network. It's on YouTube. They actually preempted the view for Donald Trump. I pulled these clips off of Twitter. I don't know why. Anyway, they were recording it. They were sitting there. Maybe they were live streaming it. Who knows? And they're listening intently. The Chinese delegation is hearing all of this, and the Europeans are all sitting there going, "Well, he's making us look foolish." I mean, if Emmanuel Macron was mad because he couldn't cross the street, wait till Donald Trump starts yelling and screaming at him about buying Russian oil. Not to mention saying Palestine should be its own sovereign state. But he goes, "Look, that's not even the worst of it. The UN." They're not only are they not helping me end wars, not only are they not helping us stop wars, not only are they kind of, just lollygagging around, breaking escalators and giving me broken teleprompters, but they're also creating problems. And in fact, Donald Trump blamed the UN, at the UN, in front of the UN, for one of the biggest problems globally. And that is illegal immigration.
Not only is the UN not solving the problems it should, too often, it's actually creating new problems for us to solve. The best example is the number one political issue of our time, the crisis of uncontrolled migration. It's uncontrolled. Your countries are being ruined. The United Nations is funding an assault on Western countries and their borders. In 2024, the UN budgeted $372 million in cash assistance to support an estimated 624,000 migrants journeying into the United States. Think of that. The UN is supporting people that are illegally coming into the United States, and then we have to get them out. The UN also provided food, shelter, transportation, and debit cards to illegal aliens. Can you believe that? On the way to infiltrate our southern border. Millions of people came through that southern border. Just a year ago, millions and millions of people were pouring in, 25 million altogether over the 4 years of the incompetent Biden administration. And now we have it stopped, totally stopped. In fact, they're not even coming anymore because they know they can't get through. But what took place is totally unacceptable. The UN is supposed to stop invasions, not create them and not finance them.
And that is all true, by the way. That's all something the United Nations did. They thought they were doing it, I don't know, because Joe Biden told them to, or because they wanted a one world order or whatever. But the United Nations they're helping people break into our country, and they're giving them money to do it. And Donald Trump's like, we're not standing for that. Why we're still part of the United Nations, I have no idea. Why we don't kick them out of our city, out of our state, out of our country. I don't know why we don't do that either. But Donald Trump, I guess he's like, look, I'm going to walk in there, and as the host country, I'm going to let you guys know what's up. And it's not just the United States of America. And this is where the problem is, because here in the United States, we've woken up and we've gotten strong leadership, and we understand that you have to put America first. But it's these woke British, European countries that are still trying to placate these DEI initiatives or these immigrant populations or whatever. They're still in the throes of it, and they are creating a huge problem. Again, they're exacerbating actually the problem that was created by the UN, and no one's going to point it out to them except for President Donald Trump, who says, look, your countries are getting destroyed.
Europe is in serious trouble. They've been invaded by a force of illegal aliens like nobody's ever seen before. Illegal aliens are pouring into Europe. Nobody's doing anything to change it, to get them out. It's not sustainable. And because they choose to be politically correct, they're doing just absolutely nothing about it. And I have to say, I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor. And it's been so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law. But you're in a different country. You can't do that. Both the immigration and their suicidal energy ideas will be the death of Western Europe if something is not done immediately. This cannot be sustained.
Donald Trump basically telling Europe, you're done for. Your immigrant populations have taken over London. They want to bring in Sharia law. There's neighborhoods in London where if you're not a Muslim, you can't safely walk the streets. They'll attack you, and the police don't even go there anymore. They're like these little pockets of self-governing Muslim societies. And the same thing's happening in Germany. The same thing's happening in Switzerland. It's happening all over Europe. Italy has been inundated. Their tourism industry has taken a hit because of all the illegal immigrants and the refugees that are coming in and bringing their religion with them. And that is something that Donald Trump says, look, but with that and your ridiculous climate policies, with that and your lack of freedom of speech, your crackdown on free speech on the internet and elsewhere. I mean, it's really, you guys are stepping in it big time, and you're going down a road of ultimate destruction, all because you're chasing these DEI principles that are being sold by the most liberal institutions in the world, who all want to create one world order where they sit atop and they tell everybody in society what they can and cannot do. Donald Trump says, we're not going to do that. We don't do that in the United States of America. You shouldn't do it in Europe either, because it's already destroying your countries. In Germany, for example, listen to this.
According to the Council of Europe, in 2024, almost 50% of inmates in German prisons were foreign nationals or migrants. In Austria, the number was 53% of the people in prisons were from places that weren't from where they are now. In Greece, the number was 54%, and in Switzerland, beautiful Switzerland, 72% of the people in prisons are from outside of Switzerland. When your prisons are filled with so-called asylum seekers who repaid kindness, and that's what they did, they repaid kindness with crime. It's time to end the failed experiment of open borders. You have to end it now.
Yeah, Switzerland, 72%. Get this, Switzerland, which, by the way, it's a beautiful country. I've been to Switzerland. It's amazing. It's as storybook and historic and artistic and gorgeous as you. Then there's chocolate and cuckoo clocks, and it's amazing, right? There's all that kind of stuff. But 72% of their inmates in prison are foreign-born immigrants? I mean, that seems like a problem. I feel like once you're hitting 50%, you're like, okay, there's an easy fix. We're shutting down the border. You know, there's no more illegal immigration, right? This isn't World War II. No, we're not going to let the Von Trapps just walk across the Alps and seek refuge in our country anymore. That's not happening. Okay. 72% of your inmate population are foreign-born immigrants. Get them out. Shut down the border. That is an issue. That is a problem. And that is something that you need to fix, because it's not something that the UN should have a hand in. It's definitely not something that the United States should have to do either. In fact, Marco Rubio, who is dominating as Secretary of State, he was on ABC News this morning with George Snuffleupagus. And George Snuffleupagus, remember, was a political operative for Bill Clinton. He's not a news reporter, right? He's the ABC news chief or Washington bureau chief, but he's not a news reporter. George Snuffleupagus is a political propagandist for the Democrat Party. He's a mouthpiece. He's a Clinton operative, and his job now is to infiltrate the media and push the liberal agenda. And whenever Donald Trump does something good, he's trying to spin it to be something bad. And whenever Donald Trump says something bad, he's going to highlight it over and over again, although Donald Trump doesn't really do anything bad. So Marco Rubio's on there, and George Snuffleupagus tries to get into a fight with Marco Rubio and get Marco Rubio to admit that cutting off USAID, remember USAID? Remember that? That was right at the beginning of Donald Trump's second term, back when Doge was still a big thing, before he and Elon broke up and then were reunited thanks to Charlie Kirk. When Elon rolled into Washington, D.C. with his big chainsaw and he went to work and he got Big Balls and all the other boys to start doging things, the first thing they took out was the USAID. And USAID was funding to the tune of billions of dollars stupid stuff. Stupid stuff in Iraq, stupid stuff in South America, stupid stuff all over the globe. Peruvian lesbian comic books and transgender TV shows and an Iraqi version of Sesame Street, which was really weird. And the money that was flowing through was, it was a Ponzi scheme. It was a slush fund that every single politician, almost, a lot of rich media moguls and world leaders all over, the world, because that's where the world leaders are. They're all over the world. They were just suckling at the United States' teat and draining us through the USAID. So Doge took it over. They put it under the control of the Secretary of the State Department, and Marco Rubio shut it down. They literally ripped the words off the door. They took the seal. USAID, gone. No more money for any of you people. And fun fact, weeks later, Stephen Colbert was canceled, which makes you wonder, maybe that's how Stephen Colbert's show was financed. Maybe when all the advertisers left, they were getting money from USAID, which means they were getting money from the federal government, which means they were getting money from you and from me. So Marco Rubio's on with George Snuffleupagus, who's trying to say, when you cut off funding to the USAID, people died. He's trying to pin death on Donald Trump any way he can. How can I make people dying Donald Trump's fault? Well, Donald Trump brought in Elon Musk. Elon Musk got rid of the USAID under Marco Rubio, and the USAID funded programs nationwide, and now people in those nations are dying. Maybe we can say without those programs, Donald Trump killed them. That's what he tried to do, but Marco Rubio wasn't letting him have it.
We shut down AID because it was a dysfunctional organization. We moved it under the State Department. Number two, we are going to do more foreign aid than any country in the world. We're going to do more than anyone in the world again this year, but we're going to do it the right way. We're going to do it holistically. We're going to do it as part of an integrated foreign policy. We are not going to fund an NGO industrial complex that built itself up, that was taking a substantial percentage of the money and not going directly to the recipients. It was going going to these organizations that had multi-billion-dollar projects and budgets. We're not going to continue to do it that way. We are going to provide aid. We're providing aid now. We just rolled out our new initiative on health. It's going to be much more successful and much more effective. We're going to enter into direct compacts with the countries. We're going to empower our embassies and our ambassadors to direct which projects we fund and how much money countries are going to be receiving. So we are restructuring the way we do aid. It's going to be far more effective, and it's going to be integrated into our holistic foreign policy.
That's all in the future. But are you standing by that comment? You're saying that no one has died?
No, it's happening now. That's not in the future.
No one has died because of the aid cuts? Are all those aid organizations lying?
That's ridiculous. Well, first of all, then they died because England didn't give enough money, or Canada didn't give more, or China did. Let's blame the other countries that don't do any foreign aid. How about China? I mean, China's the second largest economy in the world. They don't give money to these projects.
So you're no longer disputing that the aid cuts have cost people's lives. You're no longer disputing that.
It didn't. I think anybody who tells you that somehow it's the United States, if we cut $1, somehow we're responsible for some horrific thing that's going on in the world is just not true. Beyond that, I would say that in some of these places
that they cite,
not going
the reason why the aid didn't get there,
someone's going to die. One of the reasons why some of these places didn't get the aid is not because we cut the aid. It's because there's a war going on and the aid never got to the people. So in Sudan, for example, it's not just a humanitarian catastrophe, it's a war zone. Okay, the aid is stolen, the aid is impeded. In fact, they use aid as a tool against the people, and so blocking aid as a tool and an arm of war. So in some of these places, the reason why the aid isn't getting there is it can't be distributed. Look at Haiti. One of the reasons why aid can't be distributed in Haiti is you can send all the aid in the world you want. It gets hijacked and stolen by criminal gangs that control the country. And so they're the ones to blame for whatever happening there, not us who provided more aid than anybody else.
Let me just try one more time.
Africa,
are you standing
by every part of the world?
Are you standing by your contention that
no one has died because the United States has cut aid? No. People have died because gangs steal the aid. People have died because the distributors of aid have not done well. People have died because other countries haven't stepped up. But the United States has saved more lives and continues to save more lives than any other country in the world. And we're going to continue to do it, but we're going to do it the right way and in a responsible way. We're not going to continue to pour billions of dollars out the door of American taxpayer funds for programs that don't work, and in some cases were flat out corrupt.
It's a bad day to be George Snuffleupagus, isn't it? Marco Rubio, like, what you have here, once again, is ABC News. ABC News, the same network that aired Jimmy Kimmel lying about Donald Trump's supporters killing Charlie Kirk, or a Donald Trump supporter killing Charlie Kirk. ABC, the same network that airs The View with their bevy of lies about Charlie Kirk hosting Nazis at a student action summit at TPUSA in Tampa, which they had to apologize for. ABC, the same network where George Snuffleupagus accused the president of being convicted of rape, which he was not, and had to pay out $16 million for, is now trying to pin deaths on other countries because of gang violence, famine, poor leadership, corruption on the United States of America cutting off their aid. Instead of saying, hey, these other countries are bad, George Snuffleupagus is trying to tell you that the United States is bad. The United States is evil because they're not giving money and aid to countries that are using it to fund their military operations and blackmail their citizens into slave labor, basically. It is not the rosy world that George Snuffleupagus thinks it is, where we send aid to these countries and it helps people. We're cutting off aid to people who are stealing it. George Snuffleupagus wants to leave the door open, and he's trying to say Donald Trump and Elon Musk and Marco Rubio cut off the aid and people are dying. It's not at all surprising. Thank God we have someone like Marco Rubio who's in there to tell him what's what. This is exactly what Jimmy Kimmel is not actually the problem. And I'll tell you why. Jimmy Kimmel's not the problem because Jimmy Kimmel is supposedly a comedian. He's supposedly a talk show host. And while few people listen to him, every now and then something goes viral. But nobody takes Jimmy Kimmel seriously. The problem is when you have someone like George Snuffleupagus on ABC News lying, twisting the truth, propagandizing, and trying to make believe that Donald Trump cutting off aid to foreign countries kills people. That's why we need strong people like Marco Rubio and Donald Trump and Scott Bessent and everyone else in that administration, Stephen Miller, J.D. Vance, Caroline Leavitt, all of them, to come forward and say, you are lying to the American people. That's why it's important for Sinclair Media and Nexstar Media to pull the plug on Jimmy Kimmel and say, you are lying to the American public. And you're not doing it for any other reason than you hate Donald Trump. And we're not going to be part of it. And if I were Sinclair, if I were Nexstar, the next person I would pull off is George Snuffleupagus. And I would tell ABC, we're no longer going to air GMA or Good Morning America or any of these other quote unquote news shows until you stop spreading these lies. Because that's what it is. It's no longer news and information. It's lies, lies, and more lies. There's breaking news, by the way. The United States Secret Service busted up a terror plot to dismantle cell service. Guess where? New York City, where the UN General Assembly is going on right now. The United States Secret Service dismantled an imminent telecommunications threat in the New York tri-state area. A network of electronic devices located throughout the New York tri-state area were used to conduct multiple telecommunications-related threats directed towards senior U.S. government officials, which represented an imminent threat to the agency's protective operations. The Protective Intelligence Agency led to the discovery of more than 300 co-located SIM servers and 100,000 SIM cards across multiple sites. In addition to carrying out autonomous telephonic threats, these devices could be used to conduct a wide range of telecommunications attacks. This includes disabling cell phone towers, enabling denial of service attacks, and facilitating anonymous encrypted communication between potential threat actors and criminal enterprises. While forensic examination of these devices is ongoing, early analysis indicates cellular communications between nation-state threat actors and individuals that are known to federal law enforcement. The potential for disruption to our country's telecommunications posed by this network of devices cannot be overstated, said U.S. Secret Service Director Sean Curran. The U.S. Secret Service's protective mission is all about prevention, and this investigation makes it clear to potential bad actors that imminent threats to our protectees will be immediately investigated, tracked down, and dismantled. So what they found was, looks like there's a photo gallery here. What they found was, let me go back here, a whole bunch of servers with 100,000 SIM cards, communications devices. And what they're saying is that these SIM cards and these cell phones basically could send out millions and millions of messages at the same time, which would shut down cell phone service, which could create, the attacks, the disruption of service attacks, DOS attacks on various different networks like Verizon or T-Mobile or any of these other Secret Service networks that are crucial in a time of national emergency. And this is very, very disturbing for a couple of reasons. Number one, that this existed, that people were able to build this, that the Secret Service found it, thank God, is a miracle, because with the UN General Assembly, with Donald Trump and President Macron and everyone from China and Russia, all these people, all these world leaders together in one place in the tri-state area where this was founded, I mean, that right there is shocking, first of all, because clearly it shows that they were planning to disrupt during the UN General Assembly. Or the second part of this is it could be the second part of a two-tiered plan, because if you have a national emergency, some kind of disaster, some kind of, massive attack where people and emergency services and secret services and ambulances and doctors and loved ones and everybody else would need cell phone service to communicate, and it was shut down, I mean, it definitely does seem like something bigger is going on. Thank God that they found this. And apparently, like I said, the Secret Service is on it. The FBI, I imagine, is also on it. And there was no harm caused by this. Hopefully that will remain the case. There's one more thing I wanted to mention here really quickly. The Tylenol thing. If you missed the 47 Daily this morning, we went into the Tylenol thing pretty hot and heavy in the 47 Daily podcast. So make sure that you download the 47 Daily podcast every single day and listen for your morning dose, like 20 minutes, and it's going to give you all the news you need when you're on your way to work or when you're sitting in car line or when you're at the gym. Just download it, pop it in your earbuds, and go, go, go. The second thing I wanted to share with you is that tonight at 8:30, I will be hosting Podcast Profits Live. Once again, this is we're doing it a lot. I think we're doing it almost weekly now, but this is a fantastic event. And I don't just say that because I host it, but I really want you to think how important spreading your message has become in the last couple of weeks. And no matter what you're spreading your message for, if you're spreading it for business, if you're spreading it for religion, if you're spreading it for your charity, if you're spreading it just because you have a personal mission, if you're spreading it because you believe you can, I don't know, help people lose weight, whatever it is, if you can help people live a healthier lifestyle, save their marriage, whatever it is, I don't know what you guys do. But whatever it is you do, if you think that you can spread your message better with a podcast or social media or some kind of content on the internet, that you're right, then you're right. You're 100% right. And what we've seen over the past few weeks is the power of spreading messages via social media content and how many people can really be brought together under one umbrella. We've seen it multiple different times over the past couple of years. And now, by the way, if you're one of those people that doesn't see that, you're wrong, and you should definitely come. So now I put together this event tonight at 8:30. And at 8:30 tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to launch a podcast that makes money, that boosts your influence, and makes you the automatic authority in your chosen field or niche, whatever that may be. And it all takes about an hour. So if you're free at 8:30 tonight, I'm free at 8:30 tonight. This event is free. Look, Wade is coming. Wade L is coming. I like the little pop-up at the bottom because it tells me who just signed up. Wade L is coming. He just signed up 45 minutes ago. So that's exciting. Who else is going to be there? It looks like Esperanza N 5 minutes ago. She said she's coming to Podcast Profits Live. Esperanza, we're very excited to see you tonight at 8:30 p.m. Again, it's a free event, but you do have to register. So go to podcastprofitspro.com. Podcastprofitspro.com. That's where you go. You get your ticket. Mandy C is going to be there. She just registered 15 minutes ago. And like I said, spend the hour with me tonight. It's going to be fun. It's going to be informative. It's entertaining. For several of you, it's going to be life-changing. It's going to be life-changing. In the past, we've had this event and other people have left and they've started podcasts and YouTube channels and social media and entire businesses and movements. And that's what we want for you. And that's why I do this every single week. So Nick C is going to be there too. 25 minutes ago, he got his ticket. Get your ticket because this Zoom room, we've never had this many people. So I'm going to be honest with you. Tonight's Zoom room may be pretty full and we don't want you to miss out. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to the channel you're watching. If it's YouTube, subscribe. If it's Rumble, subscribe. Oh, I got to thank these people on Rumble, by the way. Rumble's been very generous. Look at this. We got a $20 Rumble rant from Izzy's man. Thank you, Mark, for your show and your honesty, and dropped a 20 on us. Izzy, man, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And look at that. JS Moorhead also dropped some money on us and said, go, Mark. I actually live in California, but we need all the help we can get in Congress. Love your show. $50. JS Moorhead, that is much appreciated as well. We appreciate all the donations. We appreciate all the help. We appreciate everybody listening too. So I'll continue to do so because look, it's constant. As you can see, every day there's a new battle, whether it's at the UN, whether it's with Tylenol, whether it's with Macron, whether it's on The View. Kamala Harris is, we think, ramping up another presidential run. I mean, it's right around the corner. The midterms are next year, depending on what happens in the next year. Next year, if the midterms go the wrong way, and the Democrats the Democrats are already posturing themselves for a huge midterm run. They want to try to get as much power as they possibly can. Oh, let me share this with you before we go. Let me share this with you. Donald Trump, by the way, posted this morning on Truth Social because there's a government shutdown looming. I don't know if you know this. The government, they gotta pass this budget. But what happened is the Republicans came up with a clean CR, which I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not a huge fan of. I'm not a big fan of these CRs. I don't like that we keep kicking the can down the road. I don't think that CRs are a good idea. I think that we've had ample time to put the budget together, and why we haven't yet put the budget together, I don't know why. But again, I'm not in Congress yet. So what happened was the Democrats wanted to add all this horrible stuff that we've already stripped out back in, or they're threatening a government shutdown. And they said, Donald Trump, we need to meet with you on Thursday. Here's a list of our demands. And Donald Trump read them and said, I'm sorry, I'm busy. He wrote, after reviewing the details of the unserious and ridiculous demands being made by the minority radical left Democrats in return for their votes to keep our thriving country open, I have decided that no meeting with their congressional leaderships could possibly be productive. They are threatening to shut down the government of the United States unless they can have over $1 trillion. That's trillion with a T. Unless they can have $1 trillion in new spending to continue free healthcare for illegal aliens, a monumental cost, force taxpayers to fund transgender surgery for minors, have dead people on the Medicaid rolls, allow illegal alien criminals to steal billions of dollars in American taxpayer benefits, try to force our country to again open our borders to criminals into the world, allow men to play in women's sports and essentially create transgender operations for everybody. These radical left views and policies is what allowed me to win the presidential election, including all 7 swing states and the popular vote in a historic landslide, no matter what Kamala Harris says. There are consequences to losing elections, but based on their letter to me, the Democrats haven't figured that out yet. They are trying to eliminate the popular $50 billion rule and vulnerable hospital fund, which was passed with only Republican votes and proudly signed into law by me. The Democrats in Congress seem to have totally lost their way. They obviously have no idea what it means to put America first or to make America great again. All congressional Democrats want to do is enact radical left policies that nobody voted for. High taxes, open borders, no consequences for violent criminals, men and women's sports, taxpayer-funded transgender surgery, and much more. Few people voted for what they represent, which would lead to the destruction of America. Instead, people voted for common sense, and that's what the Republicans and your president, Donald J. Trump, stand for. I look forward to meeting with them if they get serious about the future of our nation. We must keep the government open and legislate like true patriots rather than hold American citizens hostage, knowing that they want our now thriving country closed. I'll be happy to meet with them if they agree to the principles in this letter. They must do their job. Otherwise, it will just be another long and brutal slog through their radicalized quicksand. To the leaders of the Democrat Party, the ball is in your court. I look forward to meeting you when you become realistic about the things that our country stands for. Do the right thing. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. So as of now, it looks like there isn't going to be a meeting on Thursday, which means that the government could shut down on Friday, which means probably no one. If you're visiting a national park or have plans to visit a national park, I would make sure you do so this week. Listen, don't forget, like I said, to subscribe to the show. If you want, join us in the Catriot Club. We're going to do an after party here in about 10 minutes or so, 5 to 10 minutes. It's catriots.com. It's only $10 a month for extra Mark K every single day. And if you get the annual subscription, you save 2 months free. We'll see you there in a few minutes. In the meantime, keep listening, keep showing up, keep sharing the content, keep the faith, keep being informed and entertained and inspired, and keep praying. Because with prayer, with thoughtful prayer, and all of us coming together every single day, we will fight every single day so that we can save the Republic. I will see you all at the after party. After the party is the after.